So if you can say who you are and what you do, and if you've got someone specific to ask a question to, just say. So over there.
Hello, I'm Caroline Bottomley. I run a music video network called Radar, and I've got a question for Lance. You were talking about your data portability, looking at that. How did you proliferate the content from here to awesome, and how did you track it, and how complex was it? Did you have to use lots of different tools, or could you just use one player or something?
Well, in terms of from here to awesome, a lot of the stuff is very fragmented. In terms of being able to track it, we seeded a lot of the stuff with TubeMogul, which is a free service to use. So on the seeding part, we did it like that. In terms of the tracking, it was a lot of using certain free tools like Website Grader, which is websitegrader.com, allows you to check the search engine optimization of your own site, and it allows you to put in a couple other competing sites. So we would use things like that. We do basic Technorati searches to see how many blog mentions something had. We do Alexa searches, so it was kind of a hodgepodge of things that we were using to try to determine how that, how efficient it was, or how the social media was. And, that was primarily it. I mean, views was the least important. The volume of comments were important. And that kind of brought up a lot of the things that I was talking about, like where we're trying to move it towards and evolve, because it's such a fragmented area right now. So.
Hi, my name's Christoph. Hello. I've run a charity screening films for homeless people in Soho for the last 3 years, and we get international filmmakers in to present the films. I'm interested in rolling out that model to homeless agencies across the country, and also screening films in prisons and hospitals and schools, as a way of connecting the social. Any of you, sorry, I don't know if you can hear my question, yeah? Can any of you advise me on the best way to enjoin the power of...
Do you want to just speak up?
Yeah. To use crowdsourcing as a way of rolling out that kind of work.
So okay, well, I think I understand what you're doing. You're doing a screening series that shows films sometimes in jails and other community events, and you want to tap into a community to help spread that to other places, right?
Exactly.
Right. Well, I mean, it sounds like you're doing it. Like, what's not working about what you're doing?
Well, it's making it pay.
Making it pay?
Yeah.
So how do you make money from tapping into?
Because it's entirely voluntary right now. So yeah. So how to really get support? I mean, rather than just like busking, which seems to be like the model that Jamie's suggesting. It's like you put it out there, and then you wait for somebody to kind of chuck a dime in your hat.
Right. Well, I mean, I don't know. I think that there are a lot of companies. Yeah, there are a lot of companies right now, I think, that want to find alternate ways to create an interactive exchange about what they're doing. So I mean, that was what was interesting about Fart Monsters and working with Spout, is that what they were doing is creating a social website for reviewing films that's not that far off from what we're doing, and they ended up sponsoring us. So if you could sponsor a traveling tour that traveled around and organize community events of screenings, that would be one way.
You're running a cinema. You're running a cinema, kind of cinema.
Kind of, yes.
Was it in jails, or was that completely random?
At the moment it's for homeless people.
Right.
I don't know where you got
Okay, so you're not screening movies
So
in
just
jails?
so I can understand, homeless people come to watch films, or people come to watch films about homeless people? Homeless people watch films about homeless people.
No, homeless people come and watch films for free and get free food every 2 weeks. And then twice a year we do big events like Ken Ocean, where the public come to buy tickets, and that supports the service for us.
That sounds good to me. I don't think you're going to do much better than that.
Yeah, you're doing good.
I was going to say, we used to run a free cinema, and a few people who did this pirate cinema thing, which was a kind of global project for showing pirated films in communities or whatever, and a few of them run bars.
You
can't run a bar if it's homeless people. I mean, they've got no money to spend, I suppose. So we'll end in chaos, I guess, as well.
Next question, thanks. Is it there?
Hi, my name is Rachel Baker from the Arts Council. This is a question for Jamie. Jamie, do you think that a key part of the success of Steal This Film is the fact that the content of the film is, it follows the form of distribution, i.e., Pirate Bay, it's a promotion for the ideology of Pirate Bay. So, I mean, not all films are going, who might be attracted to the idea of being distributed through peer-to-peer pirate networks are going to have that very, idiosyncratic characteristic on the film. The content follows the form, follows the content.
Mm. Well, I would challenge the idea that we were promoting the ideology of the Pirate Bay. I mean, we differ from the Pirate Bay in many respects. For example, they're libertarian, but for sure we were canny about what kind of film we were distributing as a sort of first experiment of distributing a documentary over BitTorrent. It kind of made sense to, but we didn't strategize it like that. It was never, that was the film we wanted to make, so we didn't think about it that way around. But I'm telling you, if like filmmakers come with films that are interesting, that are right for the people who are people are going to download those films. They're going to watch them. Maybe not as many who downloaded Steal This Film, but many will do it if we structure the system properly.
I mean, if you think about it, just the example Kay showed, his films being shared on Pirate Bay, and so many other types of films are already. So I don't think, it's genre specific to sort of films that are about intellectual property, Pirate Bay, and I think that's kind of proof, looking at what's being shared, really.
Well, I mean, obviously every type of film is pirated, whether or not it's of proper form to be viewing it in that way. The audiences decide, so I agree that we need to adapt to allow the audiences to decide and for that to be okay.
I mean, Steal This Film is not the most popular thing on, BitTorrent. It's Heroes. By a long way, Heroes is the most popular show ever to. Because when Steal This Film 2 came out, I was so excited about how many peers there was in the. You saw the peers thing. There were like 7,500, and so I was contacting all the torrent trackers, asking them, "Is this a record?" And they're like, "No, Heroes is the record at 22,500."
You got knocked off by Heroes.
Yeah, god damn it!
It's true to say that the Pirate Bay was actively endorsing or promoting Steal This Film. Correct, and it hasn't done that for any other.
It has done that actually for a
okay.
few people. It did it to disastrous effect with a skatewear brand, and people reacted completely differently and were horrified that they would sell out in that way. They didn't perceive the Steal This Film thing as marketing because the match was so good. I think that's in the end that was the point that was being made about branding. If the branding is exactly right, people perceive it as information, not as noise. If they perceive it as spam, then they will hate you. So you have to be careful about how that's done.
Okay, next question. Over there.
Hello, I'm Patrick Fisher. I work for Met Film Distribution. And this is probably a question for Jamie, M. and Aaron. I loved all this. I was here last year. It's amazing. It's really cool to see how everything's moving on. Everyone's talking about hundreds of thousands and millions of hits. But what about cold hard cash? People are saying we're trading analog dollars for digital pennies. How much have you guys made in your pocket from your films? Can I ask that question?
In my case, it's pretty. These guys have done better than me. It's made. It's like £0, 0 pence.
So you've made no money.
Yeah, no profit. I mean, not enough
okay.
to call a profit. Not in a sensible way.
Well, okay, well, give me something. Even if it's $100.
Yeah, it's like it's in that order in terms of what we put in and the amount of because we don't even quantify our labor, as I'm sure these guys don't. Right? You don't. I've never even considered the idea of quantifying how much time I spent on Steal This Film. I've literally never even made a summary of it. So how could I possibly know how far in the red I was?
Sure, but okay, but
how much do you charge yourself out at? I never even made a note of that. So
Jamie, can I just say,
you invoice me for my time, and then you pay me.
Yeah, but you think about you've had another version that's been commissioned by Channel 4. There've been other ways that you've been generating revenue.
Right now, the answer would be different because now we've got like Mercury Media, our sales agent, who is selling a TV version, and they've just come back from MIPCOM, and they're delighted by how many people want to buy Steal This Film. So I assume my answer will be different by next year, but right now it's a zero-sum game and I'm delighted about it. Absolutely delighted.
Aaron.
Well, Forward Monsters grossed over $250,000, but it also cost us a lot of money and time, and so for that reason, the goal is, I think, to be able to make your next film with the proceeds from the last one. which we don't exactly have the ability to do. But we've built such a huge social support that's why it's really hard to I don't even think money is very accurate most of the time when it tries to go define value that exists in the world. And this is what we're seeing left and right. I mean, this fact is encroaching on digital media. The fact that money is inaccurate when you try and say, this experience, everything that I got from this film is worth nothing, or I'll donate $15. I mean, it's all very abstract. So I think that making films with the support of community and companies that have technology you need and all these things can be more important than the actual hard dollar that you have to make your films.
And if you notice the way we answer these questions, you can see that we're maniacs.
Okay,
that would be the obvious thing.
Well, I can answer that question, and like, mine only works because I work alone, and I made my film so cheap. So when I finished We Are the Strange, I had no debt. So it was just whatever I wanted to do. So through the DVD sales and my YouTubes, I'm working on my new animated feature film now, which cost about $16,000. So I paid for all the stuff, so I'm making my new film based on that, and I think it made around, just this year, like $30,000 or something on DVD sales. So if $30,000 wouldn't pay for bagels or something in a normal movie, but since I eat 99-cent ramen, whatever. But so it's, I'm like the X factor because I make films by myself. So if it was a team, it wouldn't be successful. But since I'm just one guy, I'm able to keep it rolling. But I plan to, my next film, make everything. Because I think your first film out, you pretty much have to give it away. You have to kind of take a loss and be like, I'm not going to make any money to gain an audience. But if you did make money, it's good. So.
But also looking at this idea of value, and you saying the dollars aren't exactly the kind of thing you're quantifying what you've made out of it. I think something that Lance was talking about was data, and also rights. For fact, these guys have the rights to their films. They also have incredibly valuable data on the audiences and connections to the audiences that are looking at their films. And Aaron and Susan did incredible stuff with Brian Charles on when you did Four-Eyed Monsters. You captured some incredible data about
it's gone on to provide business models for other companies.
And you're not invoicing, but I mean that kind of thing. We were talking about data and the fact that corporations sort of own data. These guys have started to collect valuable data for themselves, and they've got sort of projects about how they want to share that and make value for other people. So I think, it's kind of difficult to sort of say, I only made, $50,000, that's nothing.
Can I jump in? I think in some ways, like, the way that it can be done currently is through a hybrid approach, that's involving some traditional and involving some experimentation in new forms. Because I know personally when I've experimented in new forms, it's only led to additional revenue streams that maybe I didn't even expect. But then I always keep it open in terms of being able to work with the traditional, and I've been very fortunate in the work that I make, but a lot of it has been very calculated, and very decisive in terms of those opportunities, and you want to set the field for it so you're prepared, So I think maybe now you're hearing these models where they're not making anything, but I think moving forward they will, and I think some of it's just kind of thinking about it more at the same time opening it up, but then also being practical about it too, so the models that you want to work from, and then sharing the information, so because that doesn't necessarily make a very strong case towards sustainability towards film, but I think what it's looking at is it's future looking. It's models that aren't necessarily realized quite yet. But
let's be real, most people are not making any money out of making films or making music. Anybody who knows friends who are in bands knows that the vast majority of them will never make a dime and are happy to even get a gig.
In what you described as the analog world.
Yeah, and these systems that we're experimenting with now are going to provide for a lot more, I hope, a lot more people to make some kind of living or make it part of their creative lives in a way that may provide us with more interesting media. And that we don't have to answer the question, how do we get 100 people to be able to make 50 million a year? We don't have to answer that question. We only have to answer the question that makes sense to us, which is how do we have a practice which we can respect ourselves, which our audiences respect us, and when we're making enough to get by. This is in my view. That would be a great answer to have for many filmmakers, right?
Or maybe, storytelling is not important to humanity and we could just stop doing that and no one will ever do that again. There's obvious value here maybe the models have not completely caught up, but I think we're moving pretty quickly in figuring out what those models are. And I think that that's where we can all work together, actually, to get those models in place so that, you know, we can be sustainable.
I would say,
sorry, Timo.
oh, sorry, mind if I just answer? So you asked how much money did we make? We made with Star Rec around 300,000 euros, which was quite a good. But I would say that the model that I would suggest to any filmmaker that's planning to release the film on the internet for free, the model is that do your own DVDs because they will cost you €1, and when you sell those DVDs with 20 euros to the people, to the community, and the people who love your production, you're gonna get 90 euros back to yourself. Instead of going with the distribution deals with distribution companies when you get like €1 out of every DVD that you sell. So we did both. We sold our own DVD, you know, just through our own website, web store, and we had universal distribution deal. And I would say that definitely we did better by ourselves. Now, not to say that Universal did bad, but I mean, it's still 19 euros to us instead of the €1 or €2 if they pay.
Thanks, Timo. Question over there. Felicia?
Hello, Simon Woods, European Drama Network. I'm a producer and a distributor. There's quite a sad observation here, actually. On Friday, I was at the ACE event, which is part of the London Film Festival, with a group of independent filmmakers, analog you might call them, moaning about the fact that there is no sustainability because all they ever get is fees. You know what I mean? I think some of them were looking misty-eyed towards a digital future where it would all be different. I mean, that's one observation, but also I just wonder about, I mean, I'll take your point about actually getting involved in the distribution of DVDs and that sort of area where you can actually control that. Because I think the more, you know, what you've got to look at is lower numbers and actually getting a higher revenue. And what I wonder about is if you see a future where we're moving towards what happened with Hollywood. If any of you have read The Whole Equation by David Thompson, you'll see a history of Hollywood which meant from people in tents to making films to vertical integration to what we have the studio system, and whether we will see people like YouTube or some of the other big distributors moving into content creation, or at least its production, and actually we'll see a replication of that model across a digital future.
Is that a question?
Do you think you're going to see that? Do you think that, you know, and how could we avert that, or can some of us avert that?
I think, in my view, I must say I find myself, obviously I watch things on YouTube, especially when they're nested in pages that I'm reading, but I find myself dismayed by it, and I think that's probably maybe where I differ somewhat from some of you guys' practice. Our film is on YouTube because someone put it there, kind of thing, and we would never try to take it down or so, but I found the whole idea of going to this, like the swimming pool in the ocean, you know, and being in their little pool with their rules and their, like, why do I need to, we don't need to do that. We have an infrastructure which is working great, better. Then they present this like now we have something better quality or whatever. You can download an 8 gig 1080p HD version of all films that are coming out. Why would you want? It's just for convenience, and for the convenience, you're, I think, selling quite a lot in terms of attitude to owning the infrastructure, operating the infrastructure, and that's my view, is that we should be thinking about grabbing hold of this stuff which has been built and using it and staying more away from people who are clearly trying to consolidate power. Clearly, they're going to do what you suggest, and it's, you know.
Have you got anything to comment on that? M. A heavy user of YouTube.
Well, I could say a lot about YouTube, and it's kind of like on a lot of these topics, it's like I'm not trying to create a new system for other people because I don't really know. You know, mine's kind of the freak show, like one guy going one path. So it's like stuff, if you're a company or something, there's nothing really I can share with you because I'm kind of just about having the individual go their own way. But something about YouTube that it's kind of like I'm there for the community. And you can go on other sites and post other places, but it's kind of like it's a place, like I look at it almost like, I call it like the global campfire. That's why I kind of, you know, like I think way back when humans used to communicate ideas or experiences by sitting around the campfire and like relating, real personal experience to each other. That's how we learned. I kind of look at YouTube as kind of bridging that gap now. It's me in front of my webcam, whatever. So, but I'm not the old way was to have, this is the way and it's better than that way. But the way I look at it, I'll use anything and everything.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like if people will have me there and I can put my media and there's no restrictions, I'm there.
But we just have to recognize that there are certain values that come with using their systems. Just like if you go with the Pirate Bay, there are certain, there's going to be results from.
Well, I do agree. It's almost like you have to be by any means necessary or follow some rules. So I'm kind of more on the by any means necessary myself too. So
there's a question back there, blue shirt.
Hey, Philip Kelly, aspiring independent filmmaker. I don't have a job title or anything like that. This may be a bit of a personal question, but it's for the whole panel. How do you guys, back in the day, do the day-to-day living of, paying the bills, paying the rent? And, I'm in it to, get the films out there. And we're talking about making money, but where do you get the start capital? Where does that point come where you don't max out the credit card? Is it achievable? I don't have 20 grand to buy a red and do this sort of stuff, and it's buying the time and the space, I think, is the artistic term.
Sure. I think some of it starts with the people that are in this room. I'm sure there's somebody else in this room that has a camera, and depending upon the story that you have, you can hook up with them and be able to, collaborate in some way. I think in terms of the day-to-day operation, I think you have to kind of look at it. I mean, I worked my way up through the traditional system and did a lot of work crewing and spent a lot of time working like that. But then I think the real key to it is diversification. It's like being able to say, if you want to have control over the work that you make, you need to find different ways in which you can make revenue streams. And so a long time ago, when I broke from doing some stuff within the studio system, found all my eggs in one basket, I made I vowed that I would never do that again. And that for me, it was kind of finding multiple streams of revenue. So to answer your question, I think in terms of the production, you can look in this room. In terms of the day-to-day operation and in terms of living, that's a little bit more difficult. I don't know your skill set. I don't know where your strengths are. I think you have to kind of look and find that for yourself. But I think, doing the work, the democratization of the tools allows you to do whatever you want. So I think just making the work is only going to create more opportunity. I think everybody here is an example of that, just by doing it. So by any means necessary, but unfortunately I don't have a magic bullet for you.
So move to Berlin, that helps.
Yeah, and in Finland we have also a very good social security system, so you can use that one. And start selling T-shirts.
Yeah, T-shirts.
Get a good logo. Logo is important.
Yeah. I can vouch these guys are actually, none of them, I don't know if you were asking this, have got loads of money. They're all kind of self-sustaining.
No, not at all.
But that's, I wanted to just answer
yeah,
that.
it's just even for, I guess, maybe...
Well,
me too.
You, not from, before you started filmmaking. Yeah, that's what I wanted to say. Can we just got time for actually a couple of quick questions. So over there.
Hi, I'm Holly Aylett from Vertigo magazine and also from the Coalition for Cultural Diversity. I'm just interested to hear what kind of footprint these ideas, you're all obviously surfing at a wave that is inventing itself, and it's great to see it moving so fast forward year by year. But what kind of footprint does this have with countries of the so-called South or developing world? And what kind of input or exchange do you have? And what advantages do you think that can be carried to communities that are services situation or infrastructure behind them?
Well, one thing that I think is really interesting is the educational component to all this, because all of us are sharing what we're learning online, and there's the workbook project and this idea of the From Here to Awesome, research blog, and there's a woman is doing a project in Kenya, trying to bring filmmaking to Kenya, and she came to DIY Days and took all these notes and brought a DVD back there. And I think that this information is being disseminated, and I think that every filmmaker actually, whatever they're at, really good at or what they're an expert at, can be publishing the knowledge that they know, and that can be really, really coming to places that don't have film schools. And there's actually a new film academy opening up in the Middle East. There was an article in Variety that just came out about that. And they're trying to teach tons of people in the Middle East who've never operated cameras before how to do filmmaking. And I think that all the stuff that, all the types of educational material that we're all just kind of leaving in our trail is helpful to all of that.
And I can add, in Brazil, there's been a lot of interest in Steal This Film. People often tell me that I'm famous in Brazil, although I'm yet to see any results from that. But I wait hopefully. And I think one of the reasons that Steal This Film has been very popular is obviously firstly because it's free, and the other side of this piracy thing is its access to knowledge. You can get it over BitTorrent. Also works in South America. Surprise, surprise, it works very well. And I think one of the reasons it's become important in Brazil, at least this is what people have told me, is that it's a way. Steal This Film has been seen as a way of resisting the idea of proprietary information. Microsoft, and also in Brazil, a big deal is Monsanto's genetically modified soya, which is terrifying the life out of a lot of people, and they see this counter movement about free information, open information, shared information as being really crucial to their survival, in fact. And so it surprised me how big it's become there, way bigger than here.
Bigger than in countries.
Bigger than here or the States.
I mean, I think that's a really interesting point, that actually in countries of the South, there are far more movements towards these kind of ideas, because there's such a fight over sort of intellectual property and the fact that Western corporations own so many
well, that's always
things.
The strange thing in these discussions, is that we talk about intellectual property as if it was about the rights of small creators, whereas it's far more often the extension of colonial might across the whole world enforced through legal means, through these legal compacts. And that's something that's really never recognized in these discussions, is if you buy the idea that intellectual property is just about supporting your rights, in fact you're buying into a system which is specifically and precisely a system of domination, and quite a terrifying one.
So one last question, Laura. Yeah.
Hi, my name's Laura. I'm from filmmaker.com. And I just was really wondering, I mean, Timo, you talked about 7 years, your film in the making, yours was many years. You guys must have had some dark times, and you're obviously talking about not making very much money, and I'm just wondering what really drove you to finish and complete your projects and to really keep on putting the money into the next one and just keep on going.
I mean, I wouldn't know what else to do. That's one reason, and another reason is that it's actually very good to come to these seminars and everywhere when you present your film that is coming, and you have a lot of people, a lot of pressure, everybody's waiting for it. You just don't dare to quit it, so whenever it's dark times, you always get emailed by somebody who's asking, okay, so when's the film coming out? And you don't want to answer, yeah, I just quit. So that's one.
Yeah, I guess a lot of people like work to live, but I live to work. So making films, like what I do now, there's nothing else in the world I'd rather do. So every day I get up, I'm like excited, and I'll work 30 hours straight. And I mean, I kind of created this vicious cycle for myself where I only like value myself as a human being based on my films. So if I fail, I have no value. So then I have to like keep going, or else I'm worthless.
That's not healthy.
Yeah, it's
so
like a
also
masochistic filmmaking cycle, but it works.
You can also do telemarketing. That's a very good thing that I did while I was working with the first film, because they pay you a little bit, but you get to learn to speak a little bit more, and you can, work on the film.
But it's something I think people forget. It's like we get caught up into the film business, but the reason I got into making films is because it's fun.
And that's the great thing about it.
People forget that it's supposed to be fun,
And that's why we keep making up these harebrained schemes on how we can keep doing it.
But also, the way we do it, despite it having its problems with revenue and so on, at least you're making films. And what I've observed from the small contact I'm starting to have with documentary filmmaking is just the amount of time people spend making trailers and pitching and going to pitching forums and not making films. Which it's like if you put this much time into making films, you'd be having a lot more fun. You may have less money, but more fun. That would be my view, anyways.
Mm-hmm. And that's why I like to invite filmmakers to talk about distribution, actually, at Power to the Pixel, because we get a whole lot of distributors talking about distribution. It's not about films, and it's not about stories, and it's kind of, this is where it starts. And I think, getting those stories to the audiences is what we're talking about. And I know a lot of the questions are about money, and it's fair enough, and those are the bits we're kind of working out about sustainability. But I think it's the kind of these people want to make films, and that's where what we have to remember.
Well, there's something I really figured out recently, that the audience does not care about your life or how you made that film or how you struggled or whatever. All that matters is what's on the screen. They don't care about the details. They don't care if you lived in a basement filled with rats. They don't care about anything. And once you realize that, you'll do anything to make that film and put it up on the screen. So like when people ask me like, oh, how do I pay my bills, whatever, prostitution. It doesn't matter. Like I'll do anything to get the money to make the film, because I realize when I have my premiere and that audience is there, they don't care. It's just, it's there or it's not. So once you look at it like that, you kind of will bend a little bit more, work a little harder.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Unfortunately, we're going to have to end here.